anticipation of the population of LA doubling, had to figure out how to bring a significant amount of water that wasn't enough just getting the water from the aqueduct from the Colorado River, which was the first two phases of the efforts of MWD. So they passed a bond of $1.7 billion, the largest bond in the history of California, to build another capacity bringing water from Northern California to Southern California. That actually enabled to increase the population of the region by 2 million people. So that's to give a context of why this place is not just a piece of architecture, it's part of our history and the history of water in Los Angeles. Everybody that saw the movie Chinatown understands how important it was in shaping the city. When Metropolitan Water District decided to buy the site, it was actually 1960. It was clear that they needed their own place, their own offices, and something that kind of resembles the size of the agency and the importance. And this site was perfect for them, A, for its unique shape. It was huge. This is like almost 6 acres of land, which wasn't easy to find inside downtown. And it really dropped for, they bought it from the Daughters of Charity that run the hospital over here. And they took the money and bought a site on 3rd and Alvarado, which became St. Vincent Hospital today. The original plan that was designed by William Pereira actually had the low-rise, what we just walked in the morning, and a high-rise component that initially was designed to be at the back where the 3 flagpoles are. So we have these renderings that we pulled out of the archives. And then somebody said, oh no, we actually like the parking lot in this place, and then moved the tower or the annex to this site. So although this tower was designed back in 1961, for whatever reason, which we don't know exactly why, Metropolitan Water District built the first phase, which is a 2-story building, and then pulled a permit in 1972 for an addition. And that's why this building is actually, in the MWD terminology, is called the annex. So that building was completed in 1973 and was occupied until, I think, 1995. After the Northridge earthquake, there was a little bit of damage to the building. They made an assessment and said, it's going to cost too much to fix the building, let's build a new building. So they rented one of the high-rises on Cal Plaza, and then hired Gensler Architects to build what is currently the home of Metropolitan Water District next to Union Station. So this large building on the south side of the station is the current home. It's kind of interesting for us kind of walking into this building because you could see a lot of the life of the MWD still intact. If you have time, I can take you to the basement. The basement used to be the dining room or the cafeteria, the new cafeteria for MWD. And they have this style of art where they take concrete frieze and they show on the frieze like, the aqueduct or whatever kind of water inspirational art, all done in concrete. This is all intact on the wall of our now parking. Beautiful piece, and they have a very similar piece on the new one. So I don't know if it's the same artist, but certainly seems like a style we'd like to keep. So this is kind of the short history of the building. It had kind of an awkward real estate history where the church that purchased the entire campus from MWD added the sanctuary in 1998, and then this building was sitting empty for many years, and one of the elders suggested that that would be a good senior citizen housing for the Korean community. So they tried to do the entitlements, and there's actually a beginning of a process of turning this into a senior citizen housing, and then they discovered that they cannot finance it. So these two elders convinced the other elders that they should sell it to them. And you cannot sell half a building, so they had to do a early subdivision. Basically chop the building from a legal perspective so it could be owned independently. And so the church completed that in 2003. And then these two elders attempted to, or pretended to attempt to do the senior housing, but then instead sold it to another developer. And of course that got the other elders very upset because they pocketed a few $1 million. And the new owner, an old-timer downtown developer, obtained permits and entitlements to convert this building to live-work lofts. So this is back in 2005. That emerged a legal issue about who gets to use the parking, which we're using there. It turned out that when they did the subdivision, the city says, well, if you cut the building in half, where would the people of the tower park? And they said, oh no, we have plenty of parking. I said, okay, please show it to us. So they basically dedicated the on-site parking to the tower while they were parking in the MWD parking garage, which now remember we didn't take the commissioners to, which we should have. So this building had its own parking, and the developer was very happy about it. And then the minute he tried to pull a permit, the church was very unhappy on the fact that there wasn't all the parking, so they sued the developer. And this lawsuit went for many, many years, and eventually the developer gave up, sold the building, and my firm in the city purchased the building in 2011. And we were able to basically get the plans and the entitlements in place to what you see today. So we're very proud of what happened in this building. It's, for us, was really a transformative project of putting some life on Sunset, getting Wilson, the great neighborhood restaurant, open, and we kind of feel like there's new oxygen in the neighborhood. At least the feedback we get is that it's been received well. And we're hoping that the next door developers will kind of follow suit, and instead of destroying what is clearly a valuable piece of history and architecture, that they'll see there's actually a lot of value there. So that's really what this exercise is about, and I really want to say thank you to everybody that came, because you putting time in the middle of the day to actually make this statement is very important. And anyone that can come on September 15th and help as a testimony in front of the commissioners, that would be very helpful.
Thank you, Yuval. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm Richard Schave, and my wife and I run Lava, and our friend Alan Hess is just wrapping up his interview with Francis Anderton on this topic. So we've had Alan come today to talk about the legacy of William Pereira. There are a couple Pereira buildings in Peril, including this one. So we put some slides here. So why don't I just quickly, so everyone's on the same page, go through some slides for about 5 minutes, and we'll just talk about Pereira very generally. And then Alan, the rock star, the DS, will just walk in and give it to us straight from the hip. Why you should
I can do this, Richard. Why don't you stand a little closer to the image?
Okay, great. So we called this event Pereira in Peril. By the way, so the 3 Pereira buildings in Peril at the moment, well, there are 4. UC Irvine. William Pereira, in his work as a master planner, did the master plan for the city and UC Irvine, and there are a lot of buildings at UC Irvine by Pereira that are in Peril. Alan will talk about that at length. That's 1. 2, this would be 2 or 1, depending on where you're standing. LACMA, Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Coop, do you want to push that slide to the right? Yeah, so that's 1964. That's a photo taken right after LACMA opened. William Pereira did the campus for the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, and its director, what's his name?
Michael Govin.
Michael Govin is proposing a complete redesign, and we're very concerned about that. The 4th building, UC Irvine, this building, LACMA, and the 4th building, which is the last slide in these 10 slides I have, is the William Pereira 1973 addition to the Times Mirror Corporation building. So at the Los Angeles Times, we have photos, but there's the iconic 35 Gordon Kaufman Art Deco building, which everyone loves. The 49 Mirror edition, which they built for the Mirror paper that failed. And then in 1973, the okay, yeah, that's it. Right. This is this giant modernist marvel plugged into that Art Deco building. What happened is the Los Angeles Times Corporation became a media corporation, so much more paper that Dorothy Chandler, Buffy, hired William Pereira to build their corporate headquarters, which plugged into the old newspaper building. And that building is in Peril. That building was just sold last week. I think they announced plans this year. Yeah, they've been trying to sell it for a while, and we'll get back to that. So, Coop, do you want to go back to the very beginning? I'll just quickly walk through. So let me just set this up, and then Alan can come on in and just bring this on home. Great. So Pereira is a planner. William Pereira. William Pereira, 1963, the year this building was built, William Pereira appears on, do you want to flip? Yeah, this is Time Magazine. He's on the cover of Time Magazine, the man with the plan. So William Pereira exemplifies this modern architecture. Architects no longer have their offices designed, the detailing for the casements, for the windows. They don't concern themselves so much with buildings as historical contexts of buildings before them. They are engineers of environments. They build total environments. William Pereira does the master plan for USC, 1961, Pepperdine University, 1973, City of Irvine, 63. He designs these entire total environments, and that's what he does. Kim, can you give me the next?
Can you scoot over?
Yeah,
Make my life a little
over.
easier? Okay. Yeah, see? And I'll do for you, you do for me.
I always do for you, Kim. You're my wife. So this is an interesting document. So anyone that really cares about William Pereira should go to the Doheny Library at USC to special collections. And
that was pretty exciting when we found that.
So this is his document. This is really interesting. So Pereira's office does master plans. He's got this template in USC special collections. There are 65 master plans for different communities. 65. 99% of which were unrealized. But he did one, I know, isn't that amazing? So it's the same template, it's all black, it's this great black template. So the Chandlers are really interesting. So Buffy Chandler in 1956, 57, looks out on Bunker Hill and says, it's too bad Donald Spivak's gone. Donald Spivak was former deputy chief of operations of the CRA. He just had to leave. But she looks out on Bunker Hill from the LA.Times building, and she sees that the city of Los Angeles has claimed Bunker Hill as a redevelopment project, and she says, I'm going to do better. So she goes to the LA County supervisors and says, I want to build a music center. And they're like, great, raise $20 million, and she does. And so the same obsession with the architect, which is welcome back for the music center, she hires Pereira to come in, not build the building he builds for them in 73. The Chandlers come up with a redevelopment plan to seize 6 entire city blocks from 1st to 3rd, Spring to Broadway. They want to they want to buy all the private property in this 3-block area and turn it into Rockefeller Center West. And that's why William Pereira was hired. Isn't that interesting? No one knows that. It's totally fascinating. It completely failed because they refused to work with the CRA. They wanted to do it on their own. They said, we built the music center, the county of Los Angeles gave us all this help, we can do this, and it failed. And what you get is the Pereira building in 73. You can keep going. Anyway, go to USC Archives if you like Pereira. It's fascinating stuff. Next slide. So 1951, he's working with LACMA, whom he meets in school. This is their master plan for LAX, right? And in 61, the theme building is built, the airport in 61 starts to take on shape. And next slide. Does someone want to go, Arita, do you want to go grab Alan? He's like under the thing. Of course. Go get him. No, really. I know Francis Anderson's important, but okay. Television City. Again, still with Luckman. TV City, right? This is still an operational studio, right? They really spent some time. No one had built really a television studio before, and they built it from scratch. I think it's a real testament to Pereira's genius that this building is still a functional television studio. Okay, next one. Disney. Okay, who used to go there as a kid? I used to go there as a kid. I like when I see this, I want to cry. Disneyland Hotel.
That's not the building, that's the monorail.
I know, but the monorail has a stop at the hotel. It's so full. I miss this building. You know, like I talk to people who are in their 80s. I'm 47, so I talk to people in their 80s, and they always say things like, "I really miss that. I really miss that art." Like Gail Banks. I really miss that art. And they say this way, like you can tell they're like they miss being 10 in Arkansas in the summer. Like they miss everything about it. I miss that architecture. I miss that architecture of Disneyland Hotel. Anyway, Pereira built amusement parks. Next one, please. Marineland of the Pacific, 1955. I'm going to brag. We know the mermaid from Marineland of the Pacific. Lori, I'm not going to say her last name.
Her last name.
No,
Lori the mermaid.
Lori the mermaid. Her father, Charlie Sturgis, was one of the most developed diving, as we know, tanks, guns, wetsuits, everything. He was friends with the guy that invented the Churchill fins. They all did this in their garage in Palos Verdes. Her dad captured most of the specimens from Marineland of the Pacific. She was the mermaid. She's a total genius. She used to serve the walruses birthday cakes at Marineland of the Pacific. Marineland of the Pacific is now Terranea. Yeah, so this is in Palos Verdes Peninsula. So Pereira is an architect of amusement parks. I love it. Okay, next one. Boy, I don't know again. Okay, we're gonna get to this. Union Oil, next slide. So this is what? This is 6th and Beaudry. This is just the other side of the Harbor Freeway. This is his last slide. Will show you where Pereira is with Charles Luckman. Every building, they'll have a slide of it. We have 5 more. Pereira goes off on his own. He leaves Luckman. This was Union Oil. Union Oil, we have a slide of the Hypar next, of the 76 ball. So Union Oil is this great California company. We used to do walking tours of the Union Rescue Mission. Anyway, rich history. It's now a motion picture, it's now a studio.
Why did you say something about the 76 ball?
Because we have that later. Okay, so LACMA. So we talked about LACMA. So this is LACMA. LACMA is in real peril. We're going to do an event like this at LACMA in a couple months. I don't know when, but we got a great turnout, so we're going to do something like this at LACMA. Next one. UC Irvine, 63. Alan's supposed to talk about this, so we're going to skip it. We'll go back. Okay, this is still standing. Howard Johnson's Disneyland Hotel, 1965. Wow. I know, it's still there. You can go. They're booked up 2 years in advance. I called yesterday. I know, they're booked 2 years in advance.
What if you drop Pereira's name?
No, it's not going to help. I never liked this hotel, but next one. And then, here you go, Cam, 76 ball. So, William Pereira, 1965, is actually the Chinese architect under him that designs this. Pereira, of course, is a genius. He has this giant firm, and he has 6 of the top art designers and architects in the world working for him. And so this is the Hypar 76 ball. This is at the intersection of Little Santa Monica and, is it Rexford?
Burton?
It's in Beverly Hills.
It's next to the library.
It's just next to the Civic Center. It's just next to the Civic Center. One of my favorite structures in the entire world. Kim, didn't you save the 76 ball?
You're up there, you talked about it.
Okay, so 76 ball, they were bought out by a company. 76 was bought out by another company, and they said, oh, we don't like the 76 balls. So about 9 years ago, they started to tear them down. And Kim, you told me that I had to build you a website to save it, and you got in the Wall Street Journal, and you had lots of protests, and they saved the 76 ball. Wow. They changed the color. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that I know Mr. Warren.
Yeah.
This was originally designed to be at the airport.
Interesting.
And they didn't, for some reason, because it was supposed to go with the theme.
If he wants to be interviewed for my podcast, tell him I keep sending him faxes and no one ever replies. They don't have a phone number. I know.
I'll transfer.
All right, put a good word in for me.
And then they moved, they stuck it there because it was already designed and everything, it was ready to go. The airport wouldn't let them put it at the airport.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's such a great gas stations. And so, how many people have seen the Raider Bandit film, Raider Bandit Loves Los Angeles, 1974? It's on YouTube. You can if you haven't watched it, you should watch it. And he has a great interview with Ed Ruscha at Tiny Nailers Drive-In, where Ed Ruscha, it's so good. I'm not even going to get to it. Good. Alan, you're here. Kim keeps going. Oh, Kim, go back one. UC Irvine. Please, sorry. One more. Okay, 2 more. Go. Nope. Alan, what are we looking at? Just jump in.
This is the Krieger Hall at UC Irvine, one of the original buildings at UC Irvine, which was designed and planned by William Pereira, opened in 1965, 50 years ago, basically. It's a great campus. How many people have been to UC Irvine? Oh, good, excellent. Usually when I talk to Los Angeles audiences, nobody's been south of into Orange County, but I'm glad to hear that. What we were looking at here, and what we were looking at here at the Metropolitan Water District buildings as well, is Pereira's idea of modernism and the new direction for modernism. The Bauhaus, which had started in 1919, flat roofs, glass walls, boxy. That was old modernism by the 1960s. Beautiful still, and very successful, very popular, but old modernism. And people were realizing that something new needed to be done with modernism. Pereira, an architect here in Southern California, after World War II, was arguably the most modern city in the world. And growing. The economy was booming, population was growing, new industry, high-tech industry, aerospace, entertainment, music, movies, etc. as well. Los Angeles was humming at that time. Pereira had been here since 1938. He understood how people lived in Southern California, the indoor-outdoor spaces, the casual way of life. A new type of public space as well, which was more typified really by shopping centers, many of which he designed around the area.
We talked about Marineland in the Pacific.
Theme parks like Marineland as well. A new type of park, museum, whatever educational thing for these families that were flooding into Southern California. And so that is what...
Crocker Bank Building, 1968, corner of 6th and Grand. The Jesus Saves neon used to be illuminated next to it. So people used to say, Jesus Saves at Crocker Bank. The Jesus Saves neon was on the old Biola University there at Hope, yeah.
Beautiful elements here, which I think, to me, they echo actually the old Richfield building that stood right nearby by Morgan Walls and Clemens, still standing when this was built. So there is this idea of what does modern architecture look like in this new age, and Pereira defined it. Well, Beckett, Victor Gruen, A.C. Martin also contributed greatly. But in terms of aesthetics, I think Pereira really was the leader of that. For example, here at the Metropolitan Water District and at LACMA and at UC Irvine, you don't just have steel I-beams exposed, which is the way Mies van der Rohe would have done it. You have these beautiful tapered columns, and they're twin columns, so that they kind of talk to each other. They're sculptural, you get light coming through them, and then they don't stop at the top of the building. They go up into the sky as well, so they're a major element. They're also a functional element, because Pereira was a committed modernist, and functionalism was a major part of what modernism in the 20th century was all about. New materials, new engineering, etc. And so look at these buildings. I don't know if you noticed as we walked through today, you have those, those twin columns on either side, tapered, and then you have this very heavy beam, concrete beam. You can see some of the construction photos here in the lobby between these twin beams. Well, what is the reason for that? That leaves the office space open without columns to get in the way, which is a much more functional way to design an office building. Well, other people have thought of that as well, large open spaces, but what does Pereira do? He takes that concept and makes art out of it with these columns. So that's just one element. One of the other great elements, which I especially noticed today walking around, are the railings and banisters. Pereira, from his earliest buildings in Chicago, really love a good, well-detailed railing. Take a look at them. It's not just, upright steel columns of some sort, but he'll have a upright structural element, but then he'll screw a concrete panel to it to create the railing itself. And there's an infinite number of kind of variations on those ideas throughout Pereira buildings as well.
This building, this is 5900 Wilshire. It's just down the street from LACMA. This is 1971, so it's 8 years after LACMA. What's happened to Pereira in those 8 years?
Well, one interesting thing, of course, is that the kind of debacle over the water features at LACMA that had to be taken out. This building, directly across the street, still has its water features, which leads me to think that, well, there might be some way actually to restore Pereira's original concept.
Okay, this is both our favorite buildings.
Yeah, and so
You were so happy I put this in the show. I can tell.
They said La Cienega and Wilshire, the Great Western, with the John Wayne statue, I think there. If you're there, also look at the ground plane. It's these tiles, and they kind of sweep up and they create this kind of living waves, exactly, of paving as people are walking along. So, Pereira, I was just talking with Frances Anderton. Her program on DNA is going to be talking about this building in LACMA when is that going to be? I think coming up this week. But Pereira and Beckett and Bruin and Martin were huge firms. They churned out so many buildings. Not all of them are great, but each of them have certain number of really key buildings where for many years Pereira was just considered kind of a hack commercial architect. It's not true, but you actually look at his buildings. He took great care and understood, had direction to them. So that by, when was this built?
73.
73. He died in 84 or 85.
Yeah.
So this is near the end of his career, but it still has that sculptural character with this oval shape, which is not easy to achieve. I mean, today we're used to architects having, big
Don't use
flashy
that.
buildings.
Don't use that.
You don't like that?
Don't use start.
Today we have very famous, widely publicized architects who build these buildings which are instant icons, which is not necessarily the best way to start considering a design. But think about Peril. This building, the theme building at LAX, which was designed out of Pereira's office, the Transamerica Tower in San Francisco, the Pyramid. These are truly iconic buildings, which identify their city and place. The theme building is our Eiffel Tower, known throughout the world. How do you design a building which is not just big and flashy, but which grabs your attention and lasts for decades as well? That is an extremely important talent, and William Pereira had it. So amongst all of the buildings, they did a lot of commercial buildings, a lot of shopping centers, a lot
He's got 6 architects on staff. They have to make buildings.
Yeah. But out of those are these buildings. And again, this is why, I would make the argument that William Pereira is as important as Richard Neutra to Southern California. Neutra, of course, we all know what a great architect he was. But look at his output. I mean, he did not design as many buildings as William Pereira did. If he had, would the quality have been as great as the Kaufman House, for each of those buildings? So Pereira is kind of operating in a different area, really, these large corporate firms. He understood corporate clients, he understood institutional clients, he understood the regents of the University of California, and he understood people like Howard Amundsen of Home Savings and Loan. He understood people like Norton Simon of Hunt Foods. He designed Norton Simon's headquarters down in Fullerton, which is a really wonderful building. Also now owned by a Korean church, if I have that correct. But you can go to the campus. It's beautiful.
Alan, I'm gonna interrupt you. So I'm gonna do a day in the life of William Pereira in a minute. So I said this while you were being interviewed. Pereira really, so you talk about Neutra. Neutra is a guy that sat in his studio with a couple draftsmen, maybe two, maybe just one, and he designed every detail of every building. And Pereira really stepped back for corporate clients and sculpted these environments, these total corporate spaces. These are spaces which have an hegemony. And yet Pereira's spaces are empathic. And today we live in this world of corporate architecture where corporations hire architecture firms to create these environments for their corporate hegemony, and we hate them. But somehow Pereira has created these environments which we're here to talk about.
Yeah. He was, again, definitely not just a corporate hat by any means.
No, and that's the point of it, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we need to kind of break that idea because you still hear that from people who should know better. But just take one example. For example, in the early 1960s, talking about creating humane spaces. Early 1960s, nobody was concerned about the ecology or energy use or anything, pesticides or anything like that. It was just beginning to dawn on the American public that those issues might be important. Well, in these buildings, part of this change, when Pereira was creating a new modernism, he took passive solar design and integrated them into his buildings. That's what he did right here with those sunscreens, which unfortunately have gone away. But those are simply panels on the exterior building that keep the sun from adding the heat load to the interior of the building. Simple idea, passive solar design. But Pereira was thinking about that, and he was integrating it into his architecture. Those panels are part of the architecture here. He did the same thing at UC Irvine as well. So these are the aspects of Pereira's career where he was thinking about the users of the building, even while he was also hobnobbing with the wealthiest people in California.
Why don't we, so this is our last slide, why don't we, before we get into, we sort of wrap this up, I want to give people, so I worked on, and I can't get into why I never filed it, but I spent several years on and off with several people trying to, working on the Times Mirror Square. And I did a lot of research on Pereira, so does anyone here a day in the life of William Pereira to take a minute, 2 minutes? Okay, so William Pereira was a total genius. So his limousine would pick him up, he always wore black.
Bentley, yeah, Bentley.
Bentley limousine, shows up at the office, 8 a.m., he's got full staff meeting, okay? Everyone above a certain level is in the meeting room, and they all take notes. He has 3 meetings. He has that meeting at 8 a.m., he meets with clients, and then he has a meeting right after lunch with everyone he had at 8, and then again before everyone goes home at 5:30 or 6, he has a meeting. And when people leave, they have to leave him their notes, and he reviews their notes. All the notes are typed up. Yes, I believe Johnson & Payne threw all this away when they took over his partnership, because I've asked them. So Pereira amassed this incredible archive of his work and his notes on his staff's notes, which were all typed up and filed, and they're all thrown away. And people will get their notes back on their notes from Pereira, and they would routinely note that they misspelled stuff. So this is a guy who would be at the office from 8 till 6 or till 7, on and off clients, and then on the drive home he would review people's notes when he got home. And he'd be up till 10 or 11 reviewing his staff's notes on his notes. That's just I don't know. He's a really fascinating guy. I know. So Alan, let's bring this on home. This is, it's a little bright. This is the 1970s, this is William Pereira's glomming onto the 1935 Gordon Kaufman's Art Deco l.a.times building. This is First and Broadway. This structure is 1973 by Pereira. Buffy Chandler gets him on board. They build the Chandler's house in San Marino. This building has just been sold, and we all are aware that the notion of tearing down the Pereira 73 edition is definitely on the table, if only in meetings in private. So Alan, why should you care about this 1973 addition to the corporate headquarters for the Times Mirror Corporation?
Okay, well, I just begin that with understanding, as all of you do know, there was a time when Irving Gill, Rudolf Schindler were completely forgotten, and their buildings were torn down. The Dodge House by Irving Gill, for example. These architects in the 50s and 60s were not considered important, and their buildings were dispensable. We've come around, fortunately, on those two. We're at this delicate point with Pereira right now, and we're going to, because Pereira is in peril. LACMA, this building, UC Irvine campus buildings, the Robinsons in Beverly Hills, we're losing its heritage. This is a difficult building for many people today. It's not their aesthetic. It's a little too boxy. It's dark. It's very large as well. But I'd like to just
there's a lot of negative space. I mean, this giant overhang contains this exterior lobby.
Exactly. You have the relationship. These are, this is why only people look beyond just that stereotype. This entryway, this arcade really, and this open public space right at sidewalk level. It's trashed now, unfortunately, and dirty, but it was meant to expand the public place. Then notice also how he respects the Gordon Kaufman building as well. His addition is larger, but it's set back, it's lower, it's all one color as well. So these are elements of good design that Pereira is working with at this point.
You can't see it because of this photograph, but the walls, which are underneath these giant overhangs, these are giant 4-foot by 6-foot slabs of Swedish granite, which are flame treated.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful, sort of rough-hewn granite slabs. And they really complement both the Indiana limestone of the Kaufman, 35 Kaufman structure.
Yeah. So for me, this building on one side is what people still have this lingering idea that Pereira wasn't important. And yet it is also, when you look at it, an example of just why he is so important, and that any additions or changes to this property have to consider, maintaining this building and reusing. Again, otherwise we will lose Pereira's heritage. Why is that important? Because he defined us. He defined who Southern Californians were and how they lived. And that's a very definite image of ourselves that we still carry today. We can't lose that. I can go on forever.
No, wrap it up, Alan. So we're gonna wrap this up. Finish your water. Take a deep breath. Tell us. We're gonna do something like this again at LACMA, and we'll do something like this again at Time Mirror Square.
And people can go to the hearing.
And we're gonna get to that. Okay. But we're just gonna stay at the abstract layer. Why you should give a good goddamn about William Pereira. So Alan, bring us on home. Why should you care about William Pereira?
Because he was an excellent designer. He understood California, Southern California, how we lived, whether in a shopping center or at an office building or a theme park or at the airport. And he defined that architecturally as an architect in a very specific way. This is part of our DNA as Southern Californians. And so we need to save these buildings. I could go into whole field. Why save old buildings?
Why do you want to save old buildings?
Because they add dimension, variety, scale, memory to a city street. And a city which is all built in one period is frankly dull. But historic buildings build in the idea of dimension, variety, different ideas, and so forth. So from an urban planning sense, historic preservation is absolutely essential.
Perfect, great. We want to thank everyone so much for coming today.
For doing this.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it again.
Yuval?
Yeah, no, I know. Immediate next
I have an
steps.
idea.
Okay, go ahead. You have an idea.
As a sign of appreciation and for a clearer economic motivation, anybody that wants to go and try Winston for lunch can say my name and will get half of his ticket written off.
Wow, Yuval,
Try
man.
Try the restaurant. It's a great neighborhood restaurant.
All right.
It's really top-notch.
Good job. Thank you.
You're not going to regret it.
Thank you. Good job. Thank you, Yuval. Thank you. Immediate next steps. Everyone that RSVP'd, you'll get updates. An immediate update you'll get is September 15. This issue of the HCM, the Historic Cultural Monument status for the Metropolitan Water District campus, is going before the CHC, the Cultural Historic Commission. They were here. What? Heritage. Cultural Heritage Commission. Thank you. It's going September 15th. We don't know if it's going to be in the morning or the afternoon. Anyone who RSVP'd will get emails from us that signed up. We'll just send out notifications, and we'll keep up on whether it's going to be a morning or an afternoon event for the 15th. We'll also send information on where to send comments on this. There'll be an email address. I think it's Melissa Jones, who's the person in the Office of Historic Resources in charge of that. But we really need you to get the word out, and we're so grateful. And Alan, we'll do one of these for LACMA next. We'll probably do one maybe in October. I don't know. We'll sit down and look at our calendars and figure out what makes sense. Yeah. But does this, I mean, of course everyone's life changes, but it'll be like a Thursday, like at 10 a.m. or 11. And we'll just go there and we'll do something like this.
We need to develop grassroots support for LACMA as well. Nobody thinks anybody's interested in it, so if you're interested in it.
And then we'll move on to the Times Mirror Square, which is a whole other crisis, and I have my own personal war.
And then we'll take a road trip to Irvine. Why not?
Yes, my man.
May I just suggest that you do the Eventbrite thing?
We did.
For the commission hearing?
Yeah,
it'll bring a lot of people.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Because that way we'll commit.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah, I'll do that.
Free.
Thank you. Yeah. I have an Eventbrite link built into my content management system, so yes, that's easy. Okay, Yuval, before we go, bring us on home. Why should people want to save the building next door? I know you spent like 90 minutes talking about this, but just give us the elevator pitch as we go away.
There's a real kind of personal aspect to preservation, and for my only career in life, which is real estate development, I was lucky enough to basically deal with old buildings. And what at the beginning kind of seems really a technical game, or let's see how we can figure it out, became an interesting exploration of stories. And when you start digging into the story of every building you work in, it just adds a dimension to your personal life that you cannot get it when you just build a new building. You build a new building, you hopefully in 50 years it will become history, but it's much interesting to really dig out the stories and which are behind the built environment. And life is not interesting when you just tear it down and keep building new. And LA was notorious for doing it for many years, and I think in the last 2-3 decades, people start to recognize that you cannot just erase your history. And this is
Can
part
I
of
make
it.
a point too? We're never ever going to build that building ever again.
Yeah.
We're never ever going to build a 100-year-old Victorian ever again. It's never going to happen. That's why preservation is important. It can't be made again. You can't buy it on eBay. You can't 3D print it. It's never going to happen. Those types of woods don't exist anymore. Those types of stones, the way that they're quarried, the way that they're cut, it's never, ever, ever happening again. So save it.
Right. And I'm going to buy a 12-pack of beer for anyone who figures out where they're hiding those sunscreens that they took down 6 months ago. 12-pack of Heineken. Okay. Post the first photo of the salvage yard it's at, and you get a 12-pack of Heineken. Oh, good.
Several of the sunscreens were broken when they brought them. We were watching it, so little bit over.
Everyone, thank you so much. Ask good questions. Thank you.